يا عم امشي بس.
يا عم امشي صباحك واجرح.
على الشارع زي ما انت. يلا امشي روح. رامي اقعد عند الشباب غادي. خلص نمشي. رامي تعال هان تعال. اقعد هان
بجد اجري الاول خلوا من هاي.
اطلع اجري. تعال جاي.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
تطلعوش على الشارع العام. تطلعوش على الشارع من عندكم.
Yeah. Well, this morning, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a lot of things that we're going to be going over. I'm a little bit sorry about the late intro that I had coming in for you guys. A little bit of technical issues on my end. It's just regular updates within the system that want to be a pain in my butt. But you know, these things happen. All right, so what do we have going on right now? Well, today over inside of Israel, it looks like there is news that's pouring out, allegedly leaking over the American press, that Netanyahu might just bomb the crap out of Iran anyways. And it seems like this is the same story that we heard last time that we're going to hear again and again and again and again. But also over inside Gaza, the humanitarian aid point that got overran near Rafah ended up getting taken back control by U.S. contractors. And we have the first video of what is alleged to be a U.S. contractor over inside of Gaza. Hey, stop it. The first video of U.S. contractors over inside of Gaza that are actually taking, I don't know how to say this, taking the fight to the people. No, not taking the fight to the people, but they're talking to them. They're distributing aid. You know, they're doing their thing in there. Sorry about that. We're going to also talk a little bit about Yemen, because Israel went over and just bombed the crap out of Sana'a airport again because the Houthis continue to fire ballistic missiles. Well, it's being alleged that it's Israel that ended up bombing the Sana'a airport, and that came out just about 2 hours ago. And we don't know whether or not the U.S. actually took part in that strike, but we have videos coming at you off the ground over there as well. We are going to start our day off here in Seattle. This is where we're going to start our day off, up over in Seattle. Why? Because we have Antifa protesters that are losing their dang minds, allegedly because there's Christians that are on the street doing Christian things. Can't make that crap up either. I don't understand why that's such a big deal to have Christians out on the street doing, praying and doing everything else. But Antifa, they're not happy about it. Oh, the humanity. So as you can see, they're just sitting here celebrating on the street. There's nothing too crazy going on, but that didn't stop Antifa from losing their freaking minds and showing up. I got a couple videos of what actually took place over there that we're going to be going over. It's pretty freaking disturbing, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, like how disgusting it is that you just have a couple people, you just have a couple people out here that are celebrating on the street, and then Antifa decides to show up and lose their flipping minds with the entire ordeal as well. Like it's beyond, I don't know. Here, this is the type of crap that the people that are going to leave that service are dealing with.
Don't even come near me. Not your community.
Liberal dumping ground is correct.
What do you mean, why? What were they doing Saturday, dog? What are they doing Saturday, dog? Oh, you don't have time to tell people what's the drink, what's happening. Hey!
Get fucking action, you bitch! Get the fuck back! Get the fuck back! Hey, police!
This guy just fucking assaulted somebody.
Let's go! Get down! We have to
Fucking things. That guy got fucking hurt. That guy was hit by that guy.
He assaulted me.
I'm a witness.
Jonathan Joe is a fucking liar.
He assaulted me. He assaulted me.
You got it on video.
Step back.
Look at his face.
It's kind of funny to me that they go
okay?
over and they do that
okay,
crap,
man.
and then they want to turn around and play the victims. It's like the same damn thing. And it's like these Antifa folks, the Palestinians, like they're all the same. They want to provoke things. They want to like push it out and pretend like, yeah, I'm wearing my pants. Thank you very much. I'm wearing my pants today. I am. I've got my pants on, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you for your concern. The pants are on. I promise you I'm wearing them. Look at this crap. I mean, like, for what? Like, what is the point of all of this garbage? Seriously. What's the point of all of it? And they were assaulting people and just going over and attacking them on the streets. There's this lady out there. Her name is Katie Davis Court. I just came across her. And She's just kind of on the streets running around by herself, just getting attacked and chased by Antifa.
I'm not touching you.
Stay back.
Stay back, Katie. Katie, you're seriously scaring me. Katie.
I'm not touching you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Go over there. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. You're just gonna stand there and record us? You fucking pussy!
This isn't worth your time. Focus in on what is, okay?
What is that doing? Not much. We're standing there.
Focus. Why is antagonizing two people?
No. All right, make a choice now. Because we keep coming out here and putting officers in this situation.
Have a bird's eye view.
We need to stop.
Back inside.
Okay, we'll go back inside. Don't touch me.
Is she a Jedi? Yeah, she's probably a Jedi.
You came to our city, bitch! You came to our home! Go home! Go home!
And like, what the hell are all the police doing? They're walking away from this, allowing it to happen? It freaking blows my mind. Fox McCloud says it's a cult, and I think he's right. It's a massive cult. But there's a reason this cult exists over there, and it's because, look at this. The cops are just...
You came to our city, bitch!
How much you want to bet they don't have a permit to block that street? How much you want to bet they don't have a permit to block that public roadway right there, and they're doing it anyways? And you got cops that are just allowing this crap to happen and not doing a dang thing about it. And this is why Antifa and freaking like Students for the Justice of Palestine and freaking, like, I don't know, you pick one. The entire pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine movement is always out here doing this freaking crap because the cops are quite literally not freaking and doing their dang job, which is simple. Like, enforce the law. You're a law enforcement officer. Your job is to enforce the law. So, hey, you guys, let me know. I'm getting some notifications from YouTube over there this morning. If you guys are having issues with the stream or it's not appearing to come in nice, like bright, smooth, and clear, let me know. We've got some other videos of people just being randomly harassed. Oh, come on. This guy or lady or whoever the hell that is right there that's running away just quite literally stole that woman's purse. Just stole the purse. And this is why it's important for cops to do their job, because when they don't do it on those little things, then all of a sudden you have these big things that end up coming in play. And it just ends up being a huge freaking pain in the butt for everybody else. So I think that's enough like crapping on Antifa over there inside Seattle. It needs to happen. Now, the amazing thing when we start actually looking at this is... problems over here in the US might just persist a little bit further because Trump and his angry tweets, like I said, you guys, it's like national policy being directed on Twitter these days. So here we have Donald Trump saying, I told Canada, which very much wants to be part of our fabulous Golden Dome system, that it will cost $61 billion if they remain a separate but unequal nation, but will cost $0 if they become our cherished 51st state. They are considering the offer. I don't know whether or not Canada is actually seriously considering that offer, but for everybody that says that Donald Trump and Elon, they're all doing each other's favors, that's not the case. I don't know if you guys saw whatever, but you know what? Here, let's just listen to Elon for a quick sec and talk about the big, beautiful bill that Trump ended up coming out with.
No, I was like disappointed to see the massive spending bill, frankly, which increases the budget deficit, not just decrease it, and undermines the work that the Doge team is doing.
I actually thought that when this big, beautiful bill came along. I mean, like, everything he's done on Doge gets wiped out in the first year.
I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful,
but it can't be both.
My personal opinion.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the hallmark, which I told you guys about critical thinking, the way to go about doing those things. Like, you have to be a critical thinker if you're going to do things like that. But Elon's kind of pissed because he says it's undermining all of the work of Doge, which a lot of people in the United States weren't happy with in the very first place. But either way, it ended up happening. All right, let's get overseas real quick. Sana'a Airport over inside Yemen. Let me get this sucker up for you guys. Ended up getting bombed by Israel. Now, after the United States after the United States ended up, making their peace deal, if you will, with the Houthis over inside of Yemen, it kind of pissed off a lot of Israelis because they were like, well, why is this even taking place? Like that shouldn't be it, right? Like if you guys are going to strike a peace deal with the Houthis over inside of Yemen, wouldn't you think that just maybe it should be a little bit more? And what I did read was that I know last time I went over to talk about this, people were asking me about whether or not it was just American ships, international ships, everything else. They weren't supposed to be attacking anybody in the Red Sea. Well, the Houthis ended up declaring, how do I want to say this? Declaring war on Israel again, wanted to shut down the port of Haifa. Just to give you guys an idea, they announced a blockade on the port of Haifa last week. And in doing so, also said that they'd be targeting any Israeli-bound ships that are going to be traveling through the Red Sea. So in addition to doing all of that, they also decided to launch multiple ballistic missiles at Israel last week. It was just a nonstop freaking slaughter. And so Israel got pissed, and it was just a matter of time before they went over and started bombing them. Matt Borges says, I am in no means pro-Palestinian or protest for Palestine. However, at what point does this nonstop aggression in Gaza become what is being propagated? That's a very good idea. I'm trying to take it. Do you mean nonstop aggression by Israel in Gaza, Matt? I think that's what you're referring to. You're saying that Israelis are nonstop being aggressive over inside Gaza. That's not the case. Remember, there's still like over 50 hostages that remain over inside of Gaza, and like 20 of them ish might actually be alive today. And so saying it's nonstop aggression, I don't really think is a fair assessment, because that nonstop aggression is being directed at one particular group, which would be Hamas, along with all of the other little like terrorist militant groups that are over inside Gaza. So when we actually start breaking down, we start looking at the numbers of the amount of civilian deaths. If Israel was actually conducting nonstop aggression against the Palestinian people inside of Gaza, I would expect to see a much higher civilian casualty rate. Israel has actually put tons upon tons of food. There is no starvation in Gaza. It hasn't been found by the IPC, hasn't been found by the Famine Review Committee over inside of Gaza either when reviewing the reports of the IPC. So there's no, famine that's taking place. There's not a single confirmed death from starvation, regardless of the fact that Hamas and the Palestinian Health Ministry both had came out and claimed that there was, I think it's like 24 people have died from starvation at this point, but they haven't provided any actual evidence. And a lot of those cases of starvation that they have been claiming actually ended up being people with like cancer and freaking other diseases. And we're actually going to touch on that here in a little bit. Netanyahu actually made a pretty profound statement when given a speech that actually covers that particular topic. But when you look at the level of destruction across Gaza, it's undoubtable. Like you can't take away from the scale of war that's taking place over inside Gaza. But that's just that's just war. And a lot of people I don't think are used to seeing war, and so people are getting upset because they're seeing images. Why are they seeing so many images, and why is there a story being blasted out in one way, as Matt had said, the nonstop aggression in Gaza? Well, that story ends up getting perpetrated because you have over and this is just Matt's opinion, you have over 2 billion Muslims in the world and only about 15 million Jews. And so when you take that into account and you actually start thinking about it on a logical scale, who do you think is going to side with who in that freaking case? Because let's be honest, it might not be a religious war, but it certainly would seem like there's 2 different religions and one predominantly ends up taking over each side of the conflict, right? And so who is going to be backing who in this matter? And who is going to be blasting out the most information? Even if you were to just take 10% of each, that's actually going to be active in posting stuff, right? And putting it out there, who's going to win? The propaganda campaign. And so I think that is one of the biggest, issues, and one of the things that I end up combating most of the time. And it's frustrating sometimes, like when you look at it. Matt says, I'm just worried Israel is digging itself into an Afghanistan scenario. No, it's not. It's completely different than an Afghanistan scenario. And Matt, I get what you're talking about, first, let's just look at the size, scope, and scale. All right. We can see them both here up on the map. And if we go from one side of Afghanistan, just one, to the other, you're looking at 500 plus miles, just in a random measurement of Afghanistan, right? 500 plus miles from one to the other, top to bottom. If I just grab a random, measured distance, and I don't even know, man, we don't even have to go. We can go all the way up to the top, but we want to go all the way up to Tajikistan. You're looking at about 750 miles. So 500 by 750 in this case, right? For Afghanistan. And there's a lot of isolated mountains and all sorts of crap over inside of Afghanistan. And it's really hard for them to cover. when you take a look and you go down over into Gaza, dude, it's not even remotely close. All right. So we measure distance from there and we go up to the top. You're talking about 26 miles. That's it. 26 miles high. That's all you get out of it. Right. When we want to go wide, and we take the widest point of this. Watch this, man. Watch this, Matt. Measure distance between point A and point B. 7.5. It's nothing, right? So this is a much different scale, not to mention Israel's got this in their back door. And last I checked, the United States and Afghanistan are thousands of miles away from each other. And so Israel's got a much different fight, and they're not getting themselves into it. And it's a much different chunk of terrain. And the nice thing about it, unlike over in Afghanistan, where people had freedom of movement to go over, shoot and run away, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, here you have a very limited operational environment. And we already have assessed, the Israeli military has also assessed that they have either killed, wounded, or displaced, or caused to defect, not displaced, but defect, about 50+% of all of the Hamas fighters over inside of Gaza. So you went from 40,000 down to 20,000, best case scenario. 40,000 down to 20,000. Now, or I'm sorry, worst case scenario. Now, and I think that number is actually way lower. I think we're talking about maybe 10,000 fighters left inside Gaza. That's still a shit ton. To make clear for everybody, 10,000 fighters in a place this big is still a buttload of freaking fighters. But it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same Afghan type scenario. They're going to have a lot of similar issues that go into it, but Afghanistan and Gaza are two entirely separate issues. Here, they're both isolated societies in their own way. Over inside Gaza, they're isolated because, well, nobody in the rest of the world wants them. Hell, we even took in Afghans. I signed for Afghans. Ask me to sign for somebody coming out of Gaza today, and it's not going to happen. Not going to do it. Even if I was an Israeli working with them side by side in combat, maybe then, if I actually trusted them to that extent, but I don't even think I would. You're talking about a place where you had so much overwhelming support for Hamas at the beginning of this, and right now we're sitting on day 600 inside of Gaza. By the way, if you didn't know, we're sitting on day 600 inside of Gaza. So we've got to take a serious look at how this has to be done, because you got to area the city, an area the size of the city of Las Vegas, right? So Gaza, area the size of the city of Las Vegas. They're like, a tenth of a mile or something like that apart. Like, it's the closest one that I can find. And then when you look at that and you say, okay, you have 40,000 trigger pullers at the start of this conflict. You have over 25% of the population that either provides direct support and or fights for Hamas. That is a massive chunk of the population inside Gaza. And so the destruction that's going to be taking place there is going to be like way more significant, right, than you look at on anywhere else. That being said, because it's such a high concentration and the type of fighting that's being done, this guerrilla style warfare that's being done over inside of Gaza, these hit and run tactics, using caches, firing rockets, launching them from civilian locations, launching them from inside tent cities, all of the things that I've shown over the last 600 days on this channel that's actually taking place in there. When you take that into account, that destruction is actually not that bad. I'm surprised there's any buildings left standing over there, and I'm surprised there's not hundreds of thousands of Palestinian civilians that have been killed. When we actually start looking at those numbers and we start breaking that down, dude, that turns into a completely different subject. And so I don't think the aggression's that bad. I think their propaganda game is just that much better, to be perfectly honest with you. Trouble Actual coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Sorry for that rant, but sometimes you just got to explain this stuff to people because they're just unaware. Aaron Mejia coming in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Appreciate you, Aaron. I appreciate everybody that ends up coming in and donating those Speak the Truth memberships. Definitely the preferred way to get it done in here. All right. So let's go back down to what we were originally talking about, which was going to be Yemen and Israel bombing the crap out of the Sana'a airport. Okay, now we saw this happening just a couple of weeks ago. Israel had gone in and bombed the living hell out of them, and now we're getting more and more and more of them coming out. Just to reiterate, the reason that this is happening is because the Houthis over the last week have fired multiple ballistic missiles at Israel. All right, and in addition to that, they threatened to shut down the port of Haifa, and they're willing to target any Israeli-bound ship now. So if there's not, and that's a change, but before it was like, okay, any connection to Israel, now it's Israeli-bound ships. And I don't know if they're still willing to target any ships with connections to Israel, but the merchant traffic certainly thinks so, and they're staying the hell out of there. So let's go take a look at some of these videos of the bombings that are coming out of Sana'a. Let me get these up on your screen real quick. So this is going to be the first one that we're going to take a look at. This is the international airport that already had the crap bombed out of it. Now that airport was able to get opened and rerunning after Israel bombed it the last time. I remember seeing one of the first flights like a week plus ago. All right, at this airport. It hasn't been open that long since the last time that they ended up bombing it. And now Israel ends up hitting it again. Okay, so I'm seeing what Rebecca is saying is that Seattle was so much worse than just a riot. It was a setup. City council purposefully put the Christian concert inside the LGBTQ plus territory. It doesn't matter if that's where it's going, because last time I checked, the Alphabet community doesn't own any terrain inside of Seattle. They might have like a neighborhood over there. They might have things of that nature, but that doesn't make it their territory. Just because there's businesses that are leaning towards it and catering to that community doesn't make it the property of the Alphabet community. And this is the problem, Rebecca. And I appreciate you coming in, donating and everything else, but it's not their territory. And the sooner they realize that, the sooner they realize that it's the property of the city of Seattle and that they're allowed to have a Christian concert in there if they would like, which is exactly why they ended up putting it there, because they're allowed to frickin' do it. And they're allowed to express their freedom of religion. It doesn't make it okay for Antifa to go over and riot. It doesn't make it okay for them to go do a dang thing. That area is not owned by the Alphabet community, whether you like it or not. And there's a lot of people in the Alphabet community that are Christians, period, that self-identify as Christians. Believe it or not, you can be gay and still be a Christian. Yes, I know that's a crazy concept. I can tell you about it here in a little bit if you really want. But to have, in my opinion, that setup over there and call it a setup and say that it is their right to fight back or that it's inflamed by that is absolutely disturbing. Because what about the people that frequent the neighborhood that maybe would have liked to attend that? What about the people that want to go into that area and they're just not allowed because Antifa is shutting it down? What if there's people that are questioning being part of the community and wanted to go to that? All of that is individual rights to do so. But what it is not an individual right to do or a group right to do is to riot in the way that they did, break the laws, and shut down the entire city. I'm sorry. It's just not how it works. If no, you can't, Matt. Linda Lou, I got you. Yes, you can. You want to have this? You want to have this discussion here? We can have it. Rebecca says, yes, exactly. But the news is not spinning it that way. I'm very Christian and I'm appalled by the riot. Yeah. So here's how I would put it. For those of you that are saying, no, you can't. Yeah, you can. In Matt's opinion, you can. You just can't act on it. Right. The same way that, let's say infidelity, for example. And I understand that even looking at a woman when you're married, you're supposed to cut out your eyeball, all that crap. Right. So, but listen to me. Just because you have urges doesn't mean you act on those urges. All right. It's when you go and you act on them, having like trials and tribulations and tests in your life and things like that that are supposed to bring you closer to God. Yeah, you can. So you don't get to turn around and say that you can't be. Right. It's when you start acting on those things. And if that's like the way that the attraction works for them, I don't know. I'm not gay. Never have been. Couldn't tell you about it. But so it would seem from what I've been told. Is it fair? Is it an unfair shake at life in that case? Sure. But you could do it. See, Linda Lou agrees. She says, yes, you can. Look at that. Down in the chat. It's amazing how that works. Let's get back over and start talking about the airport again being bombed, because I can't. Here's a view of the airport allegedly over inside of Sanaa that ended up getting bombed today. And again, it's unknown whether or not the U.S. actually took part in this, but it is being stated that it was just Israel. I say it's unknown whether the U.S. took part in it because just a couple days ago, we got reports of more mid-air refueling tankers from the U.S. being moved down into Diego Garcia. They also had some F-18s and things like that ended up getting moved into the area in order to help protect it. So it is possible that these strikes could have been done in conjunction with the United States. I find it highly improbable, but it is possible that the U.S. could have actually taken part in there, even though we ended up pulling the aircraft carriers out of the Red Sea. It doesn't mean that the U.S. wasn't capable of taking part in that, and we've got tons of other ones. Now, this is one of the major headlines I see coming across the news today and in the feeds, and I spent a hell of a lot of time trying to get to the bottom of all of this, and this is really kind of what it boils down to, is this New York Times article. They're the ones that ended up coming out with it. Let me blow this up a little bit bigger for you guys so you can see it. As Trump seeks Iran deal, Israel again raises possible strikes on nuclear sites. Now, what I've seen today being broadcast all around social media and everywhere else is that Israel, for some reason, is going against the Trump administration and is talking about bombing Iran again. But the problem is when you go and you look for sources on this, not to mention it ends up spinning out of control, the sources, again, end up remaining anonymous. And I'm going to talk to you guys here about what the actual truth is, even though the New York Times and everybody else feels like quoting them and going off and saying, according to this, according to that. It's just not how it works. As the Trump administration tries to negotiate a nuclear deal with Iran, Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel has been threatening to upend the talks by striking Iran's main nuclear enrichment facilities, according to officials briefed on the situation. This is their source when they end up coming out and saying it. According to officials briefed on the situation. I don't know what officials they are talking to. I don't know who it is that's putting that out there, but Israel's been really clear about this stuff. They haven't been lying about it. They've been pretty damn open about it. When you start digging a little bit deeper and you start looking for who they're, like how, I don't want to say misleading this article is, but how it kind of gets that way. Clash over how best to ensure that Iran cannot even produce a nuclear weapon has led to at least one tense phone call between Trump and Netanyahu and a flurry of meetings in recent days between top officials and senior Israeli officials. Again, we get no context for this other than people that were briefed on the situation. So who was briefed on a phone call between Trump and Netanyahu would be my question. Officials always code for consultant in the room BS. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Mr. Trump said on Sunday that there could be something good coming about his effort to limit Iran's nuclear program in the next 2 days. Good, but what they failed to state was that if Iran doesn't come to the negotiating table, he also threatened to bomb the living hell out of them if they're running out of time. And so this is how they go about twisting these. Now, this was repeated, not just, there. When we start looking at, oh, get out of here with your ads. I'm done with you, New York Times. You guys are freaking killing me. So this came out today. All right. When we go on that, this ended up coming out today. I want to show you guys this. What's their name? Kristi Noem ended up arriving over inside of Israel. Look at these poor relations. So the same day that the New York Times ends up putting that out is the same day that we end up having this. Jerry Seebach says, in Leviticus, it says, any man who lays down with another man shall be stoned. So gay marriage and legalization in marijuana, gay marriage and legalization of marijuana is biblical. Oh, Jerry. Oh, Jerry, we're going to have to talk about New versus Old Testament if you want to get into Christianity. That's a theological debate that I'm not going to get into with you right now because I'm trying to do a stream. But I see what you did there. I see what you did. It's the same thing that Obama did when he said folks haven't been reading the Bible. Let's get into this here. So you got Kristi Noem and Netanyahu that are meeting up, shaking hands, and everything appears to be going very well. All right, so she's over there and she's taking care of it, no problem. There is no freaking hatred or anything like that going on. There you can see the new ambassador to Israel, who I kind of wish was president one day, but he ended up not doing it. That's a little bit upsetting on my part, but it's okay. I really like him. But our diplomatic relations with Israel are doing just fine. She had gone over there again in order to express the grief of the two people that ended up getting murdered over inside of Washington, D.C. last week, and offer condolences and likely to do more policy and everything else. Mike 17, Frank 161. What up, bro? Member of 16 months. Appreciate your support for that long, dude. I really, really do appreciate all that. You guys are freaking awesome, man. If you guys have been supporting this channel for that long, I freaking have nothing. Like I got love for y'all, man. Absolute love, because you guys have given me an opportunity to be able to come out and actually do these things. Now, Israel plans to attack. Again, here we go again. Same day, Kristi Noem's over there. Same day, we end up getting Newsweek that ends up coming out and talking about it. And it all goes back to a New York Times report, as you guys can see right here. But then they end up taking it and they end up putting more stuff on it to try to add more context. The problem is, when we start looking at this crap, when we start going deeper into it, they start quoting older and older articles, right? Here's the original one from the New York Times, right? Like, yeah, cool. They're doing that. The warning from the Trump admin, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They're taking other stuff that's already been debunked, quoting it, trying to push it for future things. So in my opinion, is there tensions between Israel and the United States right now? No, I don't think there is. Telegraph ends up putting it out as well. Again, once they get a hold of something, they just choose to start spinning it. Not a single one of these articles that I looked over today had mentioned the fact that Kristi Noem had gone over there and actually met with Netanyahu. That's pretty shocking to me if you're going to tell a whole story of a situation, particularly when you're alleging that Israel is about to be bombing another country. Again, I don't see it. Israeli officials also warned U.S. counterparts that Mr. Netanyahu might order strikes even if the deal were not achieved. Cool. Let's see who's quoting on that one. Okay, Telegraph again. Look at the date, 16 February 2025. And so they'll take this crap and they'll throw it out of freaking control and they'll take things and try to act like it's a thing when it's already been debunked. Here says, are you going to speak on Iran threatening their sleeper cells in the US and the UK? We can talk about that. Iranian sleeper cells over here inside of the United States. We can talk about that. I don't want to say this. That is something that I think the United States government, if you want my honest opinion on it, the United States government is already tracking the sleeper cells over here in the United States of America and is aware of it. Now, whether or not they're competent enough to do anything about it is a whole other discussion. My biggest issue when it comes to the sleeper cells and everything else, it's not so much like Iranian sleeper cells. That is the old school mentality of like, what you're worried about. The new school mentality, and I say that for a reason, because it's very hard to smuggle people into this country. It's very hard to sneak them across the border. It costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time. The odds of these individuals getting caught, the odds of them being surveilled, it's all a huge pain in the butt. And so typically that's what people view when they think of sleeper cells. This is the 21st century, right? And when technology evolves, so do our threats. When our battlefield tactics evolve, so do the threats to the United States. And the battlefield tactics over here in the United States for our foreign adversaries have absolutely changed in how they go about doing it. It might have been that they used to take them and shove them across the border and try to get them in here that way, right? But this isn't the Cold War anymore. Now we have tech. And a lot of the recruiting for these quote unquote sleeper cells is being done online. A lot of these mass shootings that have taken place inside schools, a lot of all of this stuff that's been done has all been done and inspired via online. And it's I don't want to say this, it's upsetting that they're doing it that way. And so the Bureau is working their butts off. The DHS is working their butts off. The agency is working their butts off. Agency is not supposed to operate here in the United States. They focus on overseas things, but they're all going to work together on these. Because you've got people overseas that are recruiting and encouraging people here in the United States of America to conduct that terrorism. And they're doing it online. And that online rapid radicalization is really what you need to pay attention to. I brought up the other day, where'd it go? This ended up just coming out the other day. And again, if you guys have been following this channel, you know that I've been tracking it. It's the Unity of Fields, right? Let me get this up for a sec, because we're going to open up their Telegram channel in just a minute. I want to show you guys this because this information ended up coming out and I'm like, that's a group I've been tracking since December. Why am I not surprised to see that they're doing it? Called it the Unity of Fields. And this is the type of crap that they end up doing in order to make it happen. All right. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh, for the love of God. It's okay. Look, I've been tracking this freaking group for a while, and they've recently came out as, how do you want to say, terroristic crap. Okay. So let me open it up and show you the type of stuff that we're talking about and how this actually happens here in the United States. When we start talking about, these different groups, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So we're going to go over to Unity of Fields. Here you go. Here's your Unity of Fields. Okay. This is kind of one of the sad parts about it. This is the type of crap that they end up sharing all the time. Free Rodney Hinton, blah, 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 blah. So you have these Telegram channels. This I would consider a Telegram channel. And what they end up doing is they look for people that are interacting with these different posts. Okay. So they put these channels together. You've got over 10,000 subscribers within Unity of Fields. So over 10,000 here on Telegram, right? And what they're going to do is they're going to look for people that are interacting over inside of Telegram. And they're going to look for people that are asking more questions. They're going to look for people that are reaching out to the admins, asking for different ways to help, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It basically allows all of these people that have already bought into the propaganda to start coming to them, and then they can take them and then they can start tasking them out accordingly and getting them into there. So this is the big problem. Like in Matt's opinion, this right here, this is the big problem. Telegram, the way that they go about recruiting, because it's so hard to get a hold of them. So I'm not so much worried about the sleeper cells as I am worried about stuff like this. This is the main issue in Matt's opinion over here in the United States, because it becomes very, very hard to track. Hey, Matt, was cool to see you on Chuck's show. Oh, man. Oh, Chuck aired that already? Cool, man. Hell yeah. Yeah, no, I love that dude. Chuck, I was surprised, man. Chuck's a really good dude. And he wants to consider, when I was talking to him, doing more joint stuff together, either joint episodes or talking more about everything that's going on. I had no idea that Chuck actually was watching the show. Chuck sent me a message. Chuck Holden, by the way, is who we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen. One of the most famous, like, what do you want to say? One of the most famous war correspondents of all time. DM me, reached out over on X and was like, hey, brother, you're doing some freaking fabulous work. Love to talk to you. I was like, absolutely, Chuck. It would be my honor, my pleasure. It's really cool to hear people like Chuck. It's really cool to hear people, of all walks of life, really, that end up tuning in here. But when I get these world experts that are actually watching this program, really warms my soul. It tells me that I'm doing something right, because there's so much stuff that you have to take into account when it comes to all of this. So yeah, you want to know what my main concern is, though, here inside the United States. Yeah, Chuck Holden, Hot Zone, Chuck Holden is up on YouTube. As a matter of fact, I show you guys where it's at. I love Chuck, so I'll give him a shout out here. You guys want to see it? I didn't even know that this was out yet. I just filmed it with him the other day. Show you guys where it's at. Hot Zone with Chuck Holden. Yeah, he's actually, like, I was surprised with this conversation that I had with him. He's a really good dude, man. Oh, dude, he just posted it 2 hours ago, so it's right here. Hot Zone with Chuck Holden. Truth in the Trenches, War Wisdom with Matt Tardio. Go check that out. It was a great freaking interview. Go watch it after this stream. I had a great time talking to Chuck. He's a really good dude. Really, really enjoyed talking to him. I'm going to do more stuff with him. Like, honestly, I'm going to take him up on that offer because I want to be able to pick his brain, because he's been in this field for a very long period of time. And he's a good-hearted human being, Christian, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I love him. He put it out not that long ago. Yeah, it dropped 2 hours ago. All right, we're going to go over into Gaza now. And we're going to go talk about the humanitarian aid camp that ended up getting overran. And I told you that I have the very first video of a U.S. contractor that ended up getting spotted over inside Gaza. This is it right here. And you're going to hear the man speaking Arabic. And for those that are Arabic speaking, if you guys are watching the stream, right, if you're Arabic speaking, you're watching the stream, what I'm being told is that he's speaking with an Iraqi dialect. So it could be, number one, that he's a former SF guy that spent a lot of time in Iraq that speaks Arabic, and he got used to speaking that style of dialect while he was over there. Or it could be an actual Iraqi that joined the U.S. military. I know lots of them that ended up doing this, that became interpreters. Then they ended up joining the U.S. military. Some of them go SF, some of them freaking do whatever, and they're U.S. citizens. And then they end up joining these contracting groups. So that could be what you're looking at. Either way, this is U.S. contracting company, and this guy over here is speaking. And you can see all of the other dudes with their backwards hats and stuff on in the background, looking all freaking cool and out. And then you have this guy over here talking to him. So
عشان سلامتكم عايشكم تروح والله الناس بارك الله فيك والله انت زلمه عسير قسما بالله تطلع بعد نوافذ ايام ما تطلع طلبات تنزل عليكم عشان سلامتكم عايشكم تروح والله الناس بارك الله فيك والله انت زلمه عسير قسما بالله تطلع بعد نوافذ.
Now, allegedly, what you're looking at here is the camp being overran. People were being stuck out in line. And I guess what they're complaining about is the amount of time it took them to get the humanitarian aid distributed amongst them, as if they have anything better to do than sit around and wait at this point in time to get their freaking humanitarian aid. So they were complaining about that. They were complaining about the long lines. And one of the biggest things I heard them complain about was the fact that they were subjecting these people to biometrics. For those of you that don't know what biometrics is, it's like, dude, I'm going to take your freaking eyeballs. I'm going to take your freaking fingerprints. I'm going to do things like that. I'm going to take a picture of your face and run it through facial recognition software and make sure that you're not a freaking jihadist, a known jihadist that's coming in here to get that aid. Because if you are, we're going to take it. And so you don't get to bite the hand that feeds you. You don't get to have your cake and eat it too when it goes down to this scenario. And if you're upset that they're running biometrics on you, there's a high probability that you're probably a freaking dirtbag. And that's what ended up causing those like big riots and stuff like that. This guy himself pissed.
ارحموا غزة. الناس رايحة عشان تاكل وتاكل اولادها، رايحة على الخطر. من مكان لمكان، حرام عليهم. تعبنا، كنت جاي اجيب لاولادي زي اللي بيجيبوا شردت، ما قدرتش اصلا. انا عندي بنت عمرها 19 سنه مش لاقي لها البامبس، جيت اجيب واشوف ايش بيعطوا الناس، جيت اجري زي الناس وانا معي ضغط سكر شريان صدري.
Okay, so just to be clear, hold on, where'd she go? Just to be clear, this woman is starving. This is the face of famine. That woman has more body fat on her than I do. I have great access to food right now, but I'm not fat. She is. Throwing that out there.
بشوف ايش بيعطوا الناس، جيت اجري زي الناس وانا معي ضغط سكر شريان صدري.
بدنا اغتسالية يا عم، حلونا فكونا يا عم، احنا بدناش حرب، بدنا الحرب تقف، بدنا الحرب تقف، احنا بنقول لكل المسؤولين بدنا الحرب تقف. على الفاضي يا عم، على الفاضي، مزحمين الناس وخلي مليون واحد هناك، مليون نفر هناك، كله على الفاضي، بقول يهود بقربوا علينا بنطيح على راسه. والله قمة النسوان تبهدل وكله تبهدل على الفاضي، كله تبهدل على الفاضي. يعني يسيطروا علينا ويذلونا كمان، يذلونا، طلعوا علينا من فوق، طلعوا علينا من فوق عشان يذلونا، يذلوا الشعب.
Looking down on them in order to humiliate them. Or maybe perhaps they're talking about actual security posture at a location because Hamas operates amongst the people over inside Gaza.
احنا بدنا المعابر، المعابر تفتحوا يدخلون مساعدات زي اول، زي ما كانوا يدخلونا قبل يدخلونا مساعدات، هذا كله على الفاضي، دخلونا عسينا جوا عشان نستلم الكابونه، 4 كيلو بنمشي عشان نروح نجيب كابونه 200 شيكل، وفي الاخر
They walked all of that way, a whole 4 kilometers. God forbid they walk 4 kilometers, 2.5-ish miles in order to get humanitarian aid to hand it out to them. And then they complain that the box is only worth 20 shekels. Not so much, because we're going to take a look inside the box. And if you really want, I can actually break down for you how much that stuff costs in the market. Because aside from this guy being upset about it, there's a lot of people that were extremely happy about it. And Gray comes in, gifting out 5 Speak the Truth memberships. Greatly appreciate you, brother.
على الفاضي، هينك زي ما انت كل الناس تروحوا على الفاضي، هذا كل اللي بيصير كلام فاضي، ما زله، ايش ما زله.
Now, while they're walking around complaining about doing this, all of those people forgot to mention that they all got upset and rioted because they weren't getting food handed out to them in the way in which they want. It wasn't happening the way in which they want. They quite literally wanted to bite the hand that feeds them, so they ended up overrunning the camps. I've got a video here that's coming up in a sec. Yesterday, I told you that there was early reports, although unconfirmed, that an Israeli helicopter had actually had fired warning shots at the people in order to get them to go back. Israel came out and said that's not true, that didn't happen. But did warning shots actually occur? In Matt's opinion, yes, they did. I think warning shots actually came from the U.S. contractors that were over there. Now, although they didn't have a right to use lethal force, often they'll use warning shots to see if they can push them back. They could have, depending on like the situation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but they're also operating on this contract likely for Israel, all right? And so they're going to have their own restrictions that are going to be placed on them. Now, the word is that these people got inside the camp and the contractors and looted all the crap, and that the contractors then were able to get back inside and take back control of the camp. This is a video of them. And if you listen and if you're careful, I'm going to turn the volume up. So I'm going to give you guys an earballs warning. You can hear bullets that are snapping past these people at one point in this video. All right. They are not direct fire engagements. They're not shooting at people directly. They're shooting over their heads. Give this a listen. You can hear it. All right. So I do believe that warning shots were fired, small arms fire well over the head of these people. These shots are likely 10, 15 feet plus over the heads of these people. And I know it's going to sound loud, but that's kind of what it sounds like. There's your first snap that went by. Did you guys hear it? I'll go back. That sound that you just heard was a bullet flying overhead. That is a hypersonic crack of a small arms round flying overhead. Listen. That right there, that sound, that is the hypersonic crack of a projectile flying overhead. Let's take a look inside of one of these humanitarian aid boxes, shall we? Dude, you've got beans, you've got cans of food, you've got what appears to be flour, you've got all sorts of crap inside of this box that have all been broken down and packaged individually for these people. Yeah, and there you go. Nate Vance says, yeah, that's way overhead. Thank you, Nate. Appreciate you backing me up on that one. These people, right, it would appear to be that on their first day of distributing aid in this manner, they were upset over what came in the boxes. I would venture to say that what they're doing is they're rationing it out on a daily basis because they're packaged in this manner, and that they would have these distribution points open so they can come back another day and another day and another day. This is enough food to feed a family for 24 to 48 hours. You might not like it. It might not be the best, but it's food. You don't get gourmet meals inside of a war zone when you support a terror organization. It's just not how it works. No zip to it. Yeah, exactly. It was hypersonic. It was very far overhead. This is what the people are pissed off about, that they were given food over inside Gaza and that it's not to their liking. The guy, and remind you, he said it was 20 shekels for this box. And I'll remind you that a bag of flour right now, and you can see multiple bags of flour inside this box, but an actual like large bag of flour over inside Gaza right now, like one of those big ass bags, ends up costing over $400. I've seen it now like allegedly skyrocketed up to like $500 on the market, which is nuts. Absolutely nuts that the guy's saying it's a 20 shekel box. Not even remotely close, brother. If you want to claim that, you're not going off the street prices, and then I question everything else that goes into it. So that's the deal. They got pissed and they freaking overran the camp. That's it. They got tired of waiting in line. They weren't happy with how it was going. And look at all of these people. Now, I do not think that they were prepared for this many people to show up. I don't. When I looked at kind of like the overhead view, you look at how those fences have been knocked down. The construction of this went very, very quick, and they were expecting people to remain normal. And it's, yeah, 20 shekels, $5.71. Yeah, we all know that it was not a $5 box. So when we look at this, right, when we look at like the scope and scale of what was taking place over there, it's Matt's opinion, it's Matt's assessment that they weren't prepared for that many people immediately to show up to start receiving these boxes. And on the very first time that you start doing things like that, there's going to be kinks that need to get worked out. And they just made it even freaking worse now to get more humanitarian aid issued out to these freaking people over inside Gaza. They looted a buttload of it. And Kogat has been coming out stating that it's not Kogat, it's not Israel that's having an issue with getting humanitarian aid out there. It is the fault of these people. This one, I can't remember if you hear warning shots or not. No, that's just a good video that gives you an idea of the scope and scale of the madness that was taking place and the amount of people that are running around. Anybody see any like people that look like they're Holocaust victims starving in this at all? Anybody see the Holocaust victims in here? No, I don't. But what I do see, the reason for this panic to take place, and you guys can all hate me for when I say this, but over here in the United States, when COVID-19 happened, and you had the grocery stores that ended up just getting bought out, all of that panic buying and everything that sets into place, you got to remember that these people are also going into that panic mode as well. That lady was fat AF. I don't know if you just saw her that ran across the stream. Shoot, that was a big girl. But that panic buying that took place inside of the supermarkets and all of that other crap, right. Now picture that inside of a war zone and you being a parent and having children and everything else. You are going to go into panic mode when this war kicks off. So I can understand how they're going to get, you know, into this manner. But they need to be able to put out announcements. They need to maybe like, you know, give, you know, certain areas, if you're in a certain area, that you're allowed a certain time frame, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That way they can kind of control these crowds a little bit more in order to get it out. And I'm saying this as one of the very first people, even before it became the mainstream point or talking point for the pro-Palestinian side, that if and I said this all the way back in 2023, that if Israel didn't get their act together when it goes down to making sure humanitarian aid and everything else is properly distributed over inside of Gaza, that you're going to have accusations of starvation and everything else that are going to take place. And this is something that they need to get it on. Now this to me, right, like this right here is a failure. I want to be perfectly clear about that. The way and the manner in which this whole thing got conducted was a failure. It does not appear to be like there was any outer ring of security or any outer choke points in order to control the flow of people that were waiting to get in there. It doesn't appear to be that way. Now, I don't have all of the inside information. I don't have all the intelligence on this. I obviously don't have the freaking overhead up-to-date imagery from yesterday on exactly what it looked like before those people ended up pouring in there. But it would certainly appear to me that it was a failure on the part of the contracting company and the IDF not to properly set up outer rings of security and not to properly work on the flow of traffic. Not that people would probably listen to it anyways because of the panicking. But that goes down into the messaging, that goes down into almost like the PSYOPs portion, if you will, the psychological operations of letting people know that they're going to have enough and they're going to be okay. If all of that was done properly beforehand, best case scenario, you wouldn't see that, right? But you're still going to see that panic. But all of that needed to be out there. And I see Nordino Gibson coming in and saying that he remembers me talking about that 100%. I did. I brought it up. This one, I remember you're going to hear, if I remember correct, this one, you're going to end up hearing the warning shots. They're a little bit closer than the last one. Still a little bit high and far away. Did you guys hear it?
يا راجل يا رايحة في الهواء في الهواء في الهواء.
Now, if you guys didn't hear it, I'm going to take it all the way back to the beginning. I want you guys to listen. You're going to hear a round crack by in just a sec. They are used to ducking from Hamas. Where are the porta potties? I don't think they're going to have any porta potties out there right now, but give it a listen right here at the very beginning. You're going to end up hearing that crack. There it was. So you hear that hypersonic crack go by. And again, it's far away. Like it's not close to them. I think that one may have been a little bit closer. It's hard to tell on video, right? But you see those people react in that manner. You hear that bullet go past, it snaps past, and you see the people immediately duck. Those are likely going to be warning shots from the contractors. Now, I say that for a reason, and I'll explain it here in just a sec. Let's listen to that crack one more time. There's your ducking and everything else. Now, when we fast forward and we go through this video, I'm going to point something out. Okay, and the way it looks, certainly right here. Hold on, there's a better shot of it. Come on, get to where I want it to be. Oh, there we go. There's a decent view. You guys see how this fence is arrayed right here? How you have it going up and then sticking out in that direction, kind of over the top of the point of view of the cameraman. That is the outside of the fence line. Clearly, that's the outside of the fence line. That means you have people inside of the wire that are moving along. They broke through it at some other point in time. It was not the wind. It was not the wind. That was a gunshot. Let's be perfectly clear. That was a projectile flying overhead. That was a smaller projectile flying overhead. It wasn't a big one. It was a small one, likely 5.56, that ended up snapping overhead. Is it possible that it could have been 7.62? Yes. Was it? I don't believe. So here you have this fence line, right? And the people are already inside the fence line and they're moving and going about that nature. So if there's warning shots being fired, it's because you have a massive crowd of people. And I've talked about it before as well, that one of my most feared moments in combat wasn't actually when I was fighting or doing anything crazy. It was when I was faced with a massive freaking crowd of people that were coming towards me. Massive crowds of people is how you end up getting your head chopped off on Al Jazeera. Inside of this massive crowd of thousands of people that are running at these contractors, inside of these crowds of thousands of people that are running towards the contractors, you're going to have Hamas operatives. You're going to have people that are inside these crowds that are trying to get intelligence on what these contractors are doing for future attacks, to see if they can exploit it in any way, to look for weaknesses, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This whole freaking storming could have also been instigated by Hamas to show that, like, the United States or the contractors in Israel has no way of doing it. All right. So there's several different things that could have occurred, but at the end of the day, I still put the failure on the contractors and I put the failure on the IDF for not having appropriate measures of security and not putting out the appropriate message to those people out there. Now, Netanyahu finally came out and made the official statement that Mohammed Sinwar is dead.
חיסלנו את דף, הנייה, יחיא סונואר, ומוחמד סינואר.
Just randomly threw it out there. No official announcement as far as I could tell, but then we have Netanyahu that comes out and says, okay, officially, we killed Mohammed Sinwar. We got him. We got him in that aerial strike.
חיסלנו את דף, הנייה, יחיא סונואר, ומוחמד סינואר. אלפי מחבלים.
Yeah, and I see in the comment section here by Mayor Holden, I don't know how to properly pronounce your name. I'm sorry, sir or ma'am. I'm not familiar with that one. I feel like it's a male name, though. They were told to have the head of the family come take the care packages. They ended up coming with all of the village. You're probably correct. I mean, that sounds right. That is exactly kind of on par with what that would look like when you're telling people to come and do that. Obviously, there was tens and thousands of people. There was tons of freaking kids. All of those kids aren't in the families, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And clearly, they didn't obey that instruction. But again, that outer ring of security and having that like outer ring of security, that choke point and everything to prevent all of that crap from happening, you can hate me for this all you want, but that's why it's called Speak the Truth. That is a failure on the IDF and the contractors. IDF should have had an outer ring of security established, setting up choke points, controlling those different people that were coming through before they even made it. And you can hate me for that all you want, but that is the honest to God's truth. It is a security failure. Security is the very first, when you look at the principles of patrolling, all right, it is always first and foremost. Always first and foremost. Security is first and foremost, all right? And there's another one that goes into it as well called common sense. All right, so the 5 principles of patrolling, for those that are unaware: planning, reconnaissance, security, control, and common sense. Those are the 5 principles of patrolling: planning, reconnaissance, security, control, and common sense. Planning first, planning's up there. But the most important one, in Matt's opinion, is common sense and security. Security is always the number one thing that you focus on everything. When you have a base set up, when you have distribution points, whatever operation it is you're doing, security is always first and foremost in a denied area. So security, security, security. They failed the security portion. Common sense also failed. Just because they were told to do that doesn't mean they were going to. I even said I highly doubt that they would listen to it. And so even if they did tell the Gazans to only send the head of households, that doesn't mean that they're only going to do that. So you have to plan for contingencies. And to me, when I like war game that situation out and I look at it and you think about what those people are going through, it's common sense to me that you're going to end up having a bunch of panic and that you need to have security in place. You could drop that security a little bit once the people get comfortable, right, with the aid distribution and everything that's going on over inside of Gaza. But what you can't do is start out with a lower level of security, hoping that they end up meeting your expectations, which we all know weren't going to happen. And so it is a fault, whether you like it or not, of the contractors and the IDF that occurred. They rushed into it too quick. They didn't have proper planning. They didn't have proper security, and common sense most certainly was not exercised to that point, whether you like it or not. It's just how it is. And that is your, like, as the ground force commander, as the individuals on the ground, whoever signed off on that plan, whoever talked it and looked it over, that is their failure. That is a security failure. Whether you like it or not, it is a security failure. That operation never should have been launched unless it was ready to go. Ever. And if their security wasn't set in place, screw international pressure, keep conducting humanitarian aid drops via C-130 for all I care. But don't open that up and expose those service members and those freaking contractors to that type of crap. Because that panic that you just saw in that video, of those people going over and overrunning the distribution point is what is going to lead to it happening again and again and again. And those people need to have faith that they're going to be able to get food the next day if they plan on doing it like that, and to keep calm in order to make all those things happen. But they didn't. Those people likely sent a ton of people knowing that Israel and the contractors are not going to be able to vet whether or not they're part of the same family to go out and get more stuff. It's just how it is.
On this day, 600 days ago, Hamas committed the brutal October 7th massacre. Terrorists infiltrated our communities. They murdered, mutilated, raped, and burned thousands. They also kidnapped hundreds of our people. In response, we launched Operation Swords of Iron, vowing never again to allow Hamas or any enemy to threaten our people. For 600 days, we have fought with resolve, yet always with obedience to international law. Key terrorist leaders have been eliminated, from Yahya Sinwar to Mohammed Deif, among many others who orchestrated terror. In the northern arena, the IDF achieved a series of major achievements. Chief among them was the elimination of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of the Hezbollah terrorist organization. Hezbollah suffered substantial blows to its capabilities. But every achievement on the battlefield reminds us of those who paid the ultimate price. We fight with the memory of our fallen brothers and sisters who gave their lives with bravery and purpose. Their sacrifice fuels our determination. This war is not over. We face threats on 7 fronts, and we are doing everything in our power to protect our people. The IDF remains steadfast in its mission to bring back our remaining 58 hostages held in captivity, to dismantle Hamas, and to eliminate all threats to our homeland. We will not rest. We will not stop. We will always defend and protect our people and our nation.
Well, no kidding. Israel's going to end up defending their people and their nation. I would have never guessed that on my own, right? Like, who would have thunk it? Israel's going to end up defending their people and their nation. I think that's kind of a common sense thing that's going to end up happening. But yeah, 600 days, man, that is a very long time to be, going back and forth, to be stuck in captivity and everything else. I told you guys that when it came down to the starvation, Netanyahu made a very good point. I'll sit here and I'll crap on the Israelis for 1 minute. I'll crap on the U.S. contractors. I'll crap on whoever is responsible for that operation. And then I'll turn around and I'll tell you that Netanyahu actually made a very valid point here.
You didn't have mass starvation at all. In fact, I'll give you one simple indication of that. We take thousands of prisoners. We sort them out into civilians and into combatants. And we photograph them. And you can see those photographs, those videos. What's the first thing you do when you take a prisoner in Gaza? The first thing you do is you tell them, take your shirt off. We want to see that there's no suicide vest. Thousands and thousands of prisoners have taken their shirt off. And you don't see one, not one, emaciated. Not a single case. From the beginning of the war till the present. In fact, you see quite the opposite because you don't get that much exercise. You didn't have mass starvation at all.
That is a very valid point. When you see all of those pictures going on across it, he's 100% correct. Now, what he failed to point out, in my opinion, is that just because they look fed doesn't mean that, like, you got to understand that Hamas is giving priority of the food that they're stealing to some of their fighters because they got to keep them fed and on the battlefield, right? So it might not necessarily be going to the people. And if those people that they were in fact trapping, so you've got one of two things. It's either evidence that they're, which again, the IPC reports have discovered no evidence of famine inside Gaza, and it was backed up by the Famine Review Committee on 3 separate occasions. There right now is another report on famine, like allegedly to be taking place, being reviewed by the Famine Review Committee right now. But again, are we going to see the same thing? Because for the last 3 times, the IPC or the Famine Review Committee has said that there runs a very strong possibility of famine occurring over inside Gaza, but not one verifiable death has came out as a result of hunger. And that is kind of like that last step for the IPC to get up to declaring a famine is people dying, all right, from starvation. And that hasn't happened. Therefore, there is no famine, just to be clear. I'm not saying that there's not food insecurity. I'm not saying that there's people that don't have their stomachs growling from time to time. But when it goes down to starvation deaths, none of them have actually been confirmed. Hamas has claimed them. The Palestinian Health Authority has. But you're talking about just a little over 20 over the course of 600 days that they're occurring. And even if that was the case, even if you were to take all 20 of those that they ended up claiming, or 24, whatever it was, it still doesn't reach that same threshold, right? It doesn't reach the threshold of famine. Where's the same level of energy for the real famines in Africa? Yeah, you know, I mean, I've got the same question when it goes down to genocide. Like, why aren't we talking about the Christians that are being massacred over inside of Syria, right? All right, I'm going to take you guys up over to Jabalia right now, over inside of the Gaza Strip. This allegedly was a building that was rigged to blow. You're sitting on top of a tank right now that's about to be firing its main gun into one of the buildings. When people see clips like this, this is what, you know, people look at and they go, oh my gosh, the Israelis are just, you know, purposefully destroying all of these buildings. But I talked to you guys before in the past, and I said these buildings over inside Gaza are going to be rigged to blow. There's going to be IEDs. There's going to be houseborne IEDs. You're going to have different caches and things like that that are set up. There's only so many engineers. There's only so many explosive ordnance techs that actually exist to be able to go and take care of these things. So why would Israel be doing this? They're hoping to get a sympathetic detonation. They're hoping to get that building to frickin' explode so it's not a danger to the IDF. Now, one could argue and say that the IDF doesn't need to do this, that they can push past it and they could clear it and that they could leave that building intact. But there's another issue that goes into that, is that the civilian population Israel also has to frickin' protect. And there is no doubt that once they push past this area, the civilians are going to be going back into it. There's also an issue of actual coordinating these things, because the military, after they mark it and they move past it, now you're talking about EOD showing up. EOD is going to do the exact same thing. So what they're attempting to do, at least, is to frickin' blow the building. That way it doesn't present a danger to the public or to the civilians or to the IDF or anybody else once it ends up going through. So with that context, now I'm going to play this video. Clearly it failed. It failed. And it can fail for numerous reasons for that to go and take place. Number one, it ends up hitting the wrong place, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd also like to point out the fact that this is a main gun from a tank shooting into a building, and you can see it didn't completely destroy the building. And so when you see these buildings that are just like ripped down and gone through, I want you to think about the amount of war that actually takes place to do that. Pretty freaking wild when you actually start thinking about it, like that's how all of that kind of like boils down and it goes. Now we're going to be taking you guys up over again. Like I said, that last one was out of Jabalia. This new one's actually coming out of Jabalia too. This image right here, and this is one that you're not going to be shown on TV. Here you have members of the IDF that are actually evacuating a freaking old lady that's stuck in a wheelchair. So while everybody's out there screaming that, you know, they're just out committing genocide and hurting people, nope, there's actually members of the IDF that are taking care of each other. This is actually coming out of Khan Yunis. Now, these are people that are in full-blown panic mode as the Israelis are moving in. It is said that the Israelis have taken over the eastern side of Khan Yunis. If I was to actually take this and put it up on the screen, get up my map. Let me get up on my map. Let me show you guys where this is at. So back over here inside Gaza, our whole 7-mile wide Gaza at its greatest point, right, as we go. I mean, we could probably, I don't know. Yeah, about 7. Maybe we might be able to squeeze 8 out of there. Either way, Khan Yunis is right down here. All right. And what these videos are reportedly coming out of, which I'm about to show you, I believe I have 2 of them in the stack for you guys, is coming up out of here. So these are civilians that are going to be panicking, and you're going to hear gunfights and things like that that are taking place in the background of this next video. So all of this is over in the eastern portion of Khan Yunis. Some of it has been cleared out by the IDF. I don't have a clearly defined frontline trace for you guys yet, nor do I have a clearly defined frontline trace over inside of Jabalia. I told you guys that these operations are going to go very, very slow. And you're likely not going to get a lot of information out. You're not going to see a lot of them. And I mean that for a reason. So here's the video that I wanted to show you guys. This is, again, for context, eastern side of Khan Yunis. Israel is pushing in. They've got to do slow, methodical, clear searches of the area. Lots of civilians didn't flee. Now, they were warned weeks ago to leave. But where are they going to go? That's the question, right? And that, to me, is where they need to get that processing set up and everything else. If they can't even distribute humanitarian aid, I promise you they're not going to be able to get that like choke point opened up when they make that announcement in order to start funneling people out of Gaza to get them to a safe location. Now, you see all these people that are scrambling down the street back over here. This is just one family. My question is, who are these people that are running down the back street over here? Watch them. 3 guys appear to be dressed all in black, running down the main road. Now you've got a cart that's pushing over behind them. This guy appears to have a bag on his back. Good question.
يا عم امشي بس.
يا عم امشي صباحك واجرى.
على الشارع على الشارع.
They're not shooting at him.
زي ما انت يلا امشي امشي. روحي. رامي رامي. اقعد عند الشباب اقعد عند الشباب غادي. خلص نمشن. رامي تعال هان تعال. اقعد هان اقعد هان. اطلع اجري. تعال اجري. تطلعوش على الشارع العام تطلعوش على الشارع العام تطلعوش على الشارع من عندكم.
There you go. So that's an inside look at what it looks like to be Palestinian over inside of Khan Yunis right now. Also, this video ends up coming out. Here's some destruction of what is said to be a grain silo over inside of Khan Yunis. You can see that the whole area is completely and totally destroyed. There's a grain silo just going down. You guys can see the dozer pushing right back through it again. Danny Golan says the round that failed didn't have the second stage triggered. Interesting. Scrapper's delight, right? So, you know, the issue with this thing right here in particular is people are upset that the Israeli Defense Force is destroying these grain silos and all this other crap. You'll notice that no grain ended up spilling out of these grain silos. They were completely and totally empty. And if you look at the actual destruction that's taking place over there, I got a feeling they have been in operation for quite some time. And so is Israel destroying this location? Yeah, very clearly they are. And it's over inside Khan Yunis, and it was a grain silo. I'm sure at one point in time it did operate and produce a massive amount. But again, it is a war zone. And so over inside the war zone, clearly this thing isn't operating. It also takes people in order to operate. Israel is not going to go over there and lock this sucker down to produce it when they have more than enough humanitarian aid that's flowing across the border right now into southern Gaza. It doesn't make sense for them to do that. Would it be cool to see happening? Are they going to have stuff like that that's actually up and operating? Sure. Do they have the manpower in order to make it happen? Is it worth the treasure to get this sucker up and running? Oh, by the way, these grain silos are going to need grain in order to make it operate. And so now you're talking about logistical concerns it's going to take just to get all that crap over there for what? Right? Just get the finished product up over to the front and get it out to the people. To me, that's not such a big deal, but there's a lot of people that are very much so upset that Israel was doing that. I understand it, but when you actually look a little bit deeper, is what it is. You've got some excavators that are tearing stuff apart. Great. So they're doing their freaking demolition and everything like that over inside of Gaza right now. That, again, is reportedly over on the eastern side of Khan Yunis. I feel like, yes, I do. Here we go. This video right here that's popping up on the screen, a lot of people are upset about this video as well. This one's coming out of Al-Mawasi. And what you're going to see is an airstrike that takes place out in this field. Okay, watch this field right over here. You're going to see an airstrike take place in the middle of this field. This ended up coming out a couple days ago. I'm waiting on some more information from it. I haven't really been able to get anything on it, but let's watch it. Okay, so we have clearly an airstrike that ended up taking place in that field. Let's rewind the video and see what we can see out there. All right, what do we see? Well, one, we got a bomb that's falling down in the middle of it. Two, you can kind of make out like this little structure over here. Now, something that Hamas ends up doing is, let me blow it up a little bit bigger on the screen so you guys can see it. Right? They have those underground. Maybe you can, maybe you can't, but it's right here. Feel free to take a screenshot, do whatever, and zoom in on it if that'll help you out. But what they end up doing is they end up having those underground rocket launchers, and then they're just kind of like barely sticking out. They'll go over and they'll reload them. And that's how that goes. Iranian officials told Reuters today that the condition for halting, that's just came out. Hell yeah, Israeli Pulse News. Iranian officials told Reuters today that their condition for halting uranium enrichment is the release of frozen funds and U.S. recognition of Iran's right to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. Well, that's not going to happen. Sorry, Iran. So there you go. Back to over here. This is what we've got. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm a moderator on that Telegram channel as well. Israeli Pulse News. Highly suggest you go follow it. But yeah, you can kind of see what appears to be an underground structure. And we've seen this before in some of these different strikes that end up taking place. Number one, that might look like a big bomb, but it's really not. Are you going to get fallout and things like that coming from there? Absolutely. Is Israel within international law if what I just stated is true? Absolutely. Clearly, they picked a particular time in order to conduct this airstrike. It wasn't at night, it was whatever. So they might have had intel that these suckers were going to fire off. They might have been fired at from this location numerous times and waited for it to get refit just to go over and blow it. For those of you that don't know, we have these things that are called points of origin or POIs. Whenever you end up having those rockets and everything that end up getting fired off, and you have those different radar systems and whatnot that are out there, they're able to tell just by the trajectory of the rocket where that rocket ended up coming from. Okay, so what they do is they look at the trajectory of the rocket, it picks up on it, they backtrack it to a particular location, just telling you how it ends up going down. So then you end up getting this POI site or this point of origin for where those rockets end up getting fired out from. And what they then do is they'll take and they'll put a sensor on it, whether it be a drone, whether it be a satellite, whatever. All right, maybe they just have eyes on it from a distance and they're able to watch these different things happen and then call in those airstrikes. But what they don't do is they don't tell you how they go about doing that stuff, which is why you guys follow this channel, which is what I love, because we're just over here building critical thinkers on this freaking war front. This is what I am going to end up closing the stream out with, ladies and gentlemen. It kind of makes me smile. Gene Simmons. For those of you guys that don't know, Gene Simmons from KISS. I had no idea about this. I ended up having to go check it out. Gene Simmons is Jewish. He ended up meeting up with a World War II veteran that ended up liberating his grandparents' freaking camp.
You're the guy I beat, huh?
I think so. Okay. I just work here. It's wonderful to see you.
Well, good to see you.
My respect and admiration.
Our division is made up.
I'm sorry, his mom.
Battalions. I was in one that would protect the division from aircraft.
Okay, but my mother was 14 years of age. That's after our entire family was wiped out of the gas chambers and tortured and all that. And were it not for, oh boy. Were it not for brave men like you, I wouldn't be here. My mother wouldn't have been here. Millions and millions of people wouldn't be here, even with the millions that were incinerated. I can't say enough about this.
Like, this to me is just a very, very powerful video. Like, looking at Gene, looking at him talking, this guy literally liberated his mom. Like, crap like this is once in a freaking lifetime. And I, for the life of me, couldn't even imagine how that would feel to meet somebody that did that for your family, right? One of the soldiers that was there on the ground. And for the soldier as well, to be able to meet him and be like, okay, this is what I did this for. It's one of those things that you don't really think about unless you've been to combat that much, or unless you've been through it, that sometimes even when you have like mission success, that some of it might feel for naught, because even some of those smaller campaigns or those smaller battles you lose your buddies from, whatever. This is therapeutic for both of them. Gene's able to like go over and do it. And I promise you that this soldier is not there for recognition, that he showed up just for appreciation out of Gene's family and what they went through because he saw that crap firsthand. And when you see stuff like that firsthand, even if you've been to war, that is very traumatizing, right? Like that stuff messes with your head. And he is going to feel likely the empathy for Gene and his family and provide him more answers that he couldn't get, especially in a time where over here in the United States of America, we now have Holocaust deniers again. We have people that are claiming this stuff never took place. There's more Nazis in the United States than, like neo-Nazis, excuse me, than are over inside of Ukraine, which just Every time I hear the neo-Nazi thing, it just makes me laugh. Those people that haven't, those people that choose to deny or choose to say that Ukraine is a Nazi nation or that they support Nazis, I highly suggest you look up the World War II Museum inside Kiev and look through what actually they have documented it and what happened to Ukraine during World War II because of the Nazis. They're not fans of them at all. They don't like Nazis. I promise you that. Ask me how many Nazis I've seen out of the 2 trips that I've taken to Ukraine. How many Nazis were there? And came across them. So I've seen plenty here in the US though. I've seen plenty of skinheads. I've seen plenty of white supremacists. I've seen plenty of racist people. I've seen plenty of everything. But yeah, so imagine not having KISS. I couldn't do it today. I couldn't do it. Yeah, and to think that KISS was controversial back in the day also blows my flipping mind, right? Like, I get it. You know what I mean? But if KISS came out today, people would be like, this crap? Okay. Like, at least it's not what's coming out of Kanye's mouth, right? Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you for joining me for another episode of the Speak the Truth podcast. Look forward to